So here we are in week, whatever number it is now, of COVID-19 and in lockdown. And the reason I say that is because it seems that one day just melds into another. And with that, I have concerns that I want to share with Peter today as we go into our third in our episodes of Check-in Chats around mental health. Peter, I know we've had chats about this in the past, but do you think I'm justified in having concerns around mental health and the effects that COVID-19 will have on people?
No, I don't think you're overstating it at all, Darren. In my experience, people coming out of lockdown now in various societies around the world, it's like almost emerging after that nuclear winter scenario that we all learnt about in the 1970s and 80s, merging into a new world. A lot of people are looking around and they're saying, well, it looks the same, but it's not. And one of the biggest issues I see is the fact that now we go to a supermarket, we have to wear masks. And wearing a mask is really an intrusive factor in communication.
Yeah.
Particularly for me, I have to wear reading glasses when I'm looking at my shopping list. Unfortunately, my out-breath creates a fog on my glasses, and I can't read the note. So it's a problem for me, but it's also a problem with me communicating with people. For me, it's not enough with the eye contact. I like to see the whole face that shows me, what they're thinking about, and particularly, walking down an aisle, we're both coming at the same point. Who's going to turn left? Who's going to move right? Particularly with social distancing, the 2 meter rule. So
you end up sort of dueling over the frozen peas almost.
Yes, or the carrots. It's so for me, it's the communication. It's a new type of communication that's kind of, I feel, frozen a little bit about. So I think that's one thing around mental health is we're not able. It takes now more energy, I think, to communicate with one another when we're outside, either driving or going shopping in a supermarket or interacting with anybody. It just takes a little bit more energy.
So when we think about mental health, what drives mental health to be, poor? Something related to trauma. This is quite a traumatic time for so many people. You and I both face challenges on, a weekly basis, and maybe not necessarily daily, but weekly basis. We are human beings. We're susceptible to this as well as anyone else. But it's a traumatic time, isn't it?
It is. It is a traumatic time. And I think one of the things as human beings do, we don't cope very well with uncertainty. Our brains are wired to understand the world in which we're living in and which we're sensing the whole time. But when we get into a problem with uncertainty, we're really in an uncertain time now. Yes, we are coming out of lockdown, restrictions are being relaxed, yet we still don't know when this is going to end. There's no end date yet. So because we're dealing with uncertainty, we are going into survival or stress mode. And when we go into that, we often focus our energy on short-term emotions like anxiety. And these types of emotions make us focus on what is happening right now. And we often, in that particular case, we often just say to ourselves, this is not happening. I'm not accepting this. I wanted to go back to the old days when we were happy and we could move around the city and go shopping without masks and meet friends for dinner, at a restaurant. I don't accept what's going on right now. So I think a lot of people are at that point now where, I think we discussed a couple of weeks ago the change curve.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people haven't moved through that very far. They're still stuck in stages 1 and 2, where they are denying and actively resisting this current reality.
So you say about people maybe showing resistance to accepting the current situation. Is that acceptable?
That's a good question. Is that acceptable? Okay, let me introduce you to this idea of radical acceptance.
Mm.
It's a theory by a guy called Linehan. And he came up with this theory to basically help human beings cope with a changed reality.
Okay.
And when something changes, like for example, I'm just thinking of the night the Titanic sunk. Now imagine people went through that change curve very quickly in those 2.5 hours it took to sink for that boat.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people were just saying, no, we're going to be fine. They used the Morse code to get the Carpathia, the sister ship of Titanic. It'll be here soon. We've got lifeboats. We'll be fine.
Mm.
Well, it wasn't.
No.
All 1,500 passengers, the ones particularly in second and third class storage. So for them, it wasn't fine. So one of the things I think we need to all do now is to simply accept the whole situation as it is. This is our reality right now. And if we accept it, two things happen. One is we acknowledge the pain, right? It's painful. It's been painful in a lot, okay? It's been painful. But if we accept that pain and associated with the reality, then we don't have to go to the next stage, which is how we react to the pain. And typically how we react to the pain is optional. We can either say, okay, this hurts, I'm not enjoying this, but we got to move on. Or for most of us, we say, this hurts, it's not enjoyable, and I just wish it would stop, and I'm not feeling comfortable, I'm feeling upset, and so you suffer. The optional part of accepting a disagreeable reality is the suffering. That's your choice. The pain will always be there. It's a bit like, you're talking with an apartment manager, right, in a large city, and so he's booked. Talking about trying to book a 2-bedroom apartment, right? So he hasn't got any at the moment, but he takes your contact details, and he says, I'll give you a call back in a couple of months. So you don't hear from him for a couple of months, and you're driving past the real estate agency for that on that street, and so you pop in just to see. And as you pop in, you're actually seeing him sign a lease for a tenant for a 2-bedroom apartment. And you go up to him and say, yeah, what happened? I thought you were going to call us. Now, that shouldn't have happened. It's not fair, but it did happen. So the pain of losing the apartment that you really wanted is, it's sad, it hurts you, you really, really want it, but how you react to that is optional. You either accept it, and when you accept it with the pain. You don't ignore the pain. The pain is there, but you accept it, and then you begin to move on.
So what do you do with that pain then? If you're accepting it and it's there, what do you do? Do you just suppress it, or?
Okay, no. What radical acceptance actually is hard work. And one of the things, as you and I both know, is we're coaches, and we sometimes use techniques like breathing techniques with our clients. First thing is, when you're in that stage of accepting the new reality, is notice your breathing. Just notice. Secondly, notice and name the emotions you're feeling. Anger, disappointment, maybe anxiety because that was the apartment you really wanted, and now you're going to have to spend more time looking for another apartment. So those two things are very, very important. So notice your breathing, notice, name, and tame that emotion. Because once you say, yeah, I'm feeling really upset, particularly, if you can share that with a spouse or a good friend, that actually helps reduce the intensity of that emotion. So it's not easy, because we are fighting against one of humankind's most natural reactions, which is self-interest, self-survival.
I was given a book. I went through. I lost my father back in 2002, and I was on a work assignment, and I was sent to the Falkland Islands in the South Atlantic, some 8,000 miles away from my home, completely isolated, I would say. And I was going through a really, really challenging time, and I wasn't ready to accept my father's loss at that time. A friend of mine that I was working with, he gave me a book. At that time, I don't think I was ready for that level of information, but it was the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Ah.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
And if you read this book, or if you're contemplating reading this book, I would say, given the situation we're in now, it's an ideal read, because it talks about not worrying about what went on yesterday, what's going to happen tomorrow. It's about, how am I feeling right now? In all of what we do not have control over, how am I doing right now? And actually, I'm in a pretty good place. I'm having a chat with a really good friend and colleague. You know, we've got a great audience that are tuning in to watch this conversation, and I'm doing okay. Yesterday, maybe I wasn't doing quite so good as I am today. Tomorrow, I don't know where I'm going to be, but right now, I'm okay. And those tomorrows are made up of moments of today where I'm feeling really, really good. And that's what he really emphasizes in the book. Hence the title, The Power of Now. It's about these moments, these seconds that we compound over every single minute, over every single hour, over every single day, taking it from today to tomorrow. And when we get to tomorrow, we will deal with tomorrow, and then we'll get to the next day. It's not, if we start thinking about a week, month, 6 months, a year down the line, without that certainty, we're likely to find ourselves in a very anxious space, and that could have an impact on our mental health, I think.
You're so right to mention Tolle's work, Darren, and also that word moment, because moment is also used in mindfulness,
yes.
Which is another form of practice, and also in yoga and meditation. I actually have a lovely quote here from Eckhart Tolle that I'd want to share with you and our audience, and I think for me, that encaptures exactly just what you said. Let me read out what he said. So he's talking about, confronting the difficult change situation. And the gamut of this could be going from, you've just lost a dear friend or a family member, right, who've died. Or you didn't get the apartment that was promised to you by a real estate agent. So there's the range, right? So this is what he says. Accept, then act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. And so if we turn that into something practical, let me go back to, because you asked me, how do we manage this whole idea of accepting this radical change? So one of the things that, obviously as you start to breathe, start to manage your breath in long, slow breaths and long, slow out breaths. Just notice your thoughts, and the thoughts will be around the situation isn't fair, I can't stand this at the moment. Notice those thoughts and just let them flow by. Don't react to them. And then interrupt that flow by giving yourself an accepting statement such as, it is what it is. And keep repeating that. Noticing your breathing and simply saying to yourself, either non-verbally inside your head or even verbalizing it outwardly, it is what it is. Accept it as if we had chosen it.
Peter, as always, wonderful catching up with you. I hope you are doing okay and you continue to stay safe and well. And I look forward to our next check-in chat, and we'll look at how we can provide value in other areas like we have done today with the subject of mental health.